Well, hey, good evening, you guys, and welcome to the 4th year of the Character Conference. This year's theme, as you can see on the screen behind me, is fighting for our lives in an age of anxiety, loneliness, depression, and suicide. And you might be like, hey man, I don't even know you, and you're throwing some $5 words at me right now. That's a really heavy topic to just start off with out of the gate. But the reality is, even though we are going to be discussing some really challenging, hard, scary things tonight, I'm really excited because now getting to be a part of these nights for several years running, every single time I leave, I am just filled with a sense of hope, a sense of inspiration, and a sense of purpose. So even though this is what we're going to be talking about tonight, I'm believing, all of our speakers are believing, the team that put this together, we're doing this to fill you with a sense of hope, and we are so excited to be handing that out tonight. Our first speaker for tonight has a story that is so powerful, and we are really lucky to hear from her. She is a graduate from this very school, from Glacier High School. She is a former Wolfpack, and she is currently a graduate student at the University of Montana. Let's clap and cheer and give it up big time for Teigan Avery as she takes the stage tonight.
Thank you, Colton. Hello. So yes, I'm Teigan Avery, and I have a lot to say, and I want to say it right, so I'm going to use my notes. Bite me. So, who here has taken physics? Taken physics? What's Newton's third law? Newton's third law of motion? Anyone? Isn't it something to the effect that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? Now, I just want you to keep this thought in mind as I go through today's conversation with you, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Because the big takeaway that I want you to get from me, which you got a preview of, is life is going to smack you, if it hasn't already. And maybe more than once. And when that happens, you can have an equal and opposite reaction. Like you're some sort of atom just floating through the universe that things happen to. Or you can have a response, and you can take agency in your life. You can let life smack you down, or you can gather yourself and smack back. Now, before we really get into this, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to reveal some things that I'm embarrassed about, that I don't want to share. But it doesn't do me, and it doesn't do you any good if I keep my armor up and pretend like these things didn't happen to me. So, I just hope that you go there with me. Now, read the bio on this girl. Does anybody want to share what they think about when they read the bio on this girl? Yeah, what do you think? Amazing and gratitude. Okay, yeah. She probably reads too many books, right? Let's do it. How about this girl? Anybody else have any thoughts on her? Maybe you? Yeah, you look like, what does it make you think? Very athletic? Yeah. And then now we've got this girl. I won't call it anyone, because you probably feel really bad for her. And you're like, whew, that's a lot. You're a smart audience. You probably realize that all three of these girls are me. And I can choose how you perceive me based off of what I share with you. I can be the honor student, I can be the go-getter athlete, or I can be a pretty sad story. But there it is. I had cancer, developed an eating disorder, and then lost my dad all by my 22nd birthday. I would gladly give up these experiences if I could. I'd say thanks, but no thanks. You got the wrong girl, just keep walking. But I can't. I can't control the things that happen to me. but I can't control how I have responded to it. When I found out I had cancer, I was in the middle of a transitional summer. And PSA, wear your sunblock, kids. I had been struggling mentally that spring when my boyfriend broke up with me, and I had to work with him. I decided to work on my revenge bod that summer and get mad fit to show him how big he messed up. I was all in on this lifestyle change when I went to my nurse practitioner for my annual checkup. And at my checkup, she had me swallow, and swallow again, and swallow one more time, and then one more time, and she goes, I don't really like the nodule on your throat. And I was like, no kidding, and thanks for the sore throat, jeez. But before she even scheduled me for an ultrasound, I knew. I had that lead gut feeling that I wasn't going to like the outcome. Fast forward 3 weeks, and I found out I had thyroid cancer. Papillary thyroid cancer, to be specific, which is the best kind you can get, apparently, if you're going to get cancer. I needed surgery, but I decided to put it off until November after my fall golf season so I could still compete. I didn't tell my professors, I didn't tell most of my friends and most of my family. I just kept it to myself and acted like nothing was happening. I was trying to cling to normalcy. I had surgery to remove half my thyroid, which went great, and for a week I thought the worst thing that would come out of this ordeal was that I would never be able to wear a normal shirt again. But that changed after my post-op appointment. I learned that they had found cancer cells in some of my lymph nodes that were removed along with the tumor's half of my thyroid. That's the first time I truly got upset. I was like, you're telling me that the cancer that's not supposed to go anywhere has gone to my lymph nodes, and I'm 20 years old, like I'm not supposed to have cancer anyway. And like I said, I had already been trying to work on my fitness, my lifestyle change, and that is when my eating disorder truly began. I felt out of control. I didn't trust my body, I didn't trust my fate, but I decided to trust that if I could follow all sorts of stupid, arbitrary rules around my diet and exercise, that if I could just work hard enough to be fit, to control my wellness, if I could be perfect, just perfect, then the cancer wouldn't come back. And I kept it all inside, this fear that I had, to myself. Going through this inner turmoil, trying to keep my body going as little food as possible, until the following September. The start of my senior year was going bad. My back went into spasm, keeping me from golfing for a week. I was tired and overwhelmed. I just could not cope. And people kept asking me if I was okay. I was like, I'm okay. Are you okay? Why are you asking me if I'm okay? I was okay before, but now that you've asked me that I'm okay, I'm not okay. But people could tell I wasn't acting like myself. My roommate was concerned, my mentor in the honors college was concerned, and my trainer was like, Teigan, what is up? Eventually though, I snapped at two people that I loved. I bit at them without warrant. One of them was my coach. I was straight up rude and disrespectful to him on the golf course. And that's when I realized I really needed to get some help. So after talking with my dad and my athletic trainer, I started counseling with a therapist who specialized in eating disorders. And it felt so good to talk to someone about the inner narrative that I had going on in my head, that I was not good enough, that I was not perfect enough, that I wasn't exercising hard enough, that I wasn't funny enough, or skinny enough, or kind enough. She drew attention to my hateful inner coach, who was telling me that nothing was enough. And she also made me realize that not everybody's inner coach screams at them like that. She drew attention to the fact that I was extremely hard on myself and would say things to myself I wouldn't say to my best friend, not even another human being. And that the way I had chosen to cope with this fear that I kept inside of me was killing me. And I just want you all to take a moment to think about how you speak to yourself. Do you speak like a friend, like you want yourself to succeed? Or do you speak like a bully? Because I was a bully to myself. But after talking with Kelly, my amazing counselor, and drawing awareness to that, I was able to challenge that narrative in my head that was telling me that I wasn't enough, and able to recognize that I had taken other people's words, other people's storylines, other people's expectations, other people who didn't necessarily know me, and made them my truth, and made them reality in my head. And by challenging these narratives, I was able to see that I didn't have to live up to these people's words. I started to feel like a worthwhile human being again. I was able to see how worthy I was, and that rainbow over my head Casey Musgraves talks about. I'd finally distanced myself from the storylines in my head and used some of the affirmations that Grady is going to share with you later. And I was treating myself like someone I actually wanted to live with. Because spoiler alert, you have to live with yourself. I was putting weight back on, starting to feel like I was actually good enough. And I can remember the day on campus that I was walking to my afternoon class, floating, feeling so good about life, and that I was getting my crap figured out. It was November 18th, just over a year from my thyroid surgery, when I was taken from class, driven home in a cop car, and told with my roommates on my couch that my dad had killed himself. I miss my dad every day. I tried to figure out why he did it. Why did this loved, flawed man who worked here as a counselor, why did he decide that his best option was suicide? And how many of you try to figure out this question yourself? Why? I tried to look for my own storylines to figure out who or what to blame to answer that question, why. But before I share my answer, I do want to share something about my dad. Which is that my dad was a talker. He could talk, and he loved talking on the phone. And if you saw Grady Avery come across your caller ID, you better buckle up, because you are locked down for an hour at least. And when he would say bye, I could tell when the conversation was actually going to end. Because if he said bye, it wasn't done. If he said bye, he'd follow up with a, oh, hey, by the way, I totally forgot this. And bye, I need to mention. He once told his best friend bye 3 times before finally saying that, bye, which meant the conversation was actually done. So as toxic as these things can be, my dad knew how powerful they were and how they could connect people. And on his last day, he didn't pick up the phone. I thought to myself, if only my dad had called me that day. And my grandma told me, if only Jared had called me. But how are we to know? We can't be blamed for not knowing that he was in crisis. It was on my dad to call us. All he had to do, the thing that he did every day, was to pick up the phone and call someone. He could have called me, my mom, my brother, his mom, his mother-in-law, his brother-in-law, his sister. He could have called the pizza guy. Anyone he would have talked to would have told him that life was smacking him right now, but it wouldn't always be this way. And maybe when my dad killed himself, he thought it would solve his problems. And maybe he thought that when he killed himself, it would solve our problems too. But because he didn't make that call, he left behind as his legacy some of the biggest problems my family and I have ever faced. The problem of what to do now. From what do we wear to the funeral? Who's going to coach the boys' freshman basketball team? Will people judge our family? Will we have to sell our home? Who will walk me down the aisle when I get married? By choosing to solve his problems with suicide, he left behind him way more problems than he could have ever imagined. Because he didn't pick up the phone, the only person to blame for my dad's suicide is my dad. Who here has heard of PTSD? Anybody want to tell me what it means? Post-traumatic stress disorder. You got it. Has anybody heard of PTG? Yeah? No? PTG? Something nobody talks about. It's post-traumatic growth. The idea is that you can have something really hard in your life and grow from it. And you get to decide if you're going to embrace those smacks from life or if you're going to use them as an opportunity to surprise yourself, to respond and to grow, which is something Noah's going to talk more about later. When people hear my story, they often say, I could never. But you don't know that. You don't know unless you go through it. And you'd be surprised. And you will have something happen to you in your life. It's inevitable. And maybe you have already. And don't make comparisons in it. The hardest thing that's ever happened to you is the hardest thing that has ever happened to you. And that is valid. And it's okay to suffer. But then you have to make the choice of how you're going to respond to that. You don't get to choose what happens to you, but you get to choose your response. I get to use these events in my life as opportunities to grow. I get to keep living my life and keep fighting for my life. And I get to make something meaningful out of these hardships. Like I said, I wish none of these things had ever happened to me. But because of them, I've developed a resiliency I didn't know that I had inside of myself. And it's helped me respond, not react, to the pains, annoyances, and bummer days that I've had since. I'm also especially grateful for every day I get to spend with my family and my friends and with myself. So let's go back to those three girls. All those things in bold are things that have happened since my dad died. My story. My story has kept going. And even though my dad chose to give up on his life, I'm still fighting for mine. But because my life has kept going, this part's gonna sound crazy. My dad's dead. He's on one side of the relationship, but I'm still living here. And even though he continues to be buried in Glacier Memorial Gardens, he continues to be in a box, I continue to have a relationship with him that changes and evolves. And lately I've been really mad at my dad, because he just missed the third birthday that he should have been here for. And instead, I hiked up a mountain on my skis, I ate a Reese's peanut butter cup, and I cried. My feelings for my dad continue to change, even though he continues to be dead. And because of that, I have to continue to choose to forgive my dad. I have to continually forgive him for his last act, and forgive him for making me so mad at him. Forgive him for making me miss him. But forgiving him isn't just for him, it's for me too. When I choose to forgive my dad, I liberate myself to move forward with him, with gratitude for how he raised me, but to understand that I have to keep living my life. And I also have to forgive myself. I have to forgive myself for my old coping mechanism. I have to forgive myself for my feelings toward my dad. And I have to forgive myself for having hard days, because I'm not perfect and I make mistakes. And through this forgiveness, I let myself be free to live, to try, to fail. So, yeah, there it is. That's my story. I'm 23, about to turn 24. Before I pass the mic back to Colton, who's been rocking it tonight, I have one more thing to say, which is I want to leave you with one last action item, which is make a phone call. Call your mom. Call your dad. Call your kid, your son, your daughter. Call the National Suicide Hotline. Text Death to Life. Call someone. And you don't have to be in a crisis to use these numbers. The website says emotional distress. And I get it. Calling someone's terrifying. I'm Gen Z. I hate talking on the phone as much as the next person. So you can text them too. But whatever you do, make the call. Put down your armor. Be vulnerable. Be strong and ask for help. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Teigan. Well, we have another speaker that's going to join the stage in just a second. He is the head football coach here at Glacier High School, and he is a business teacher, and I've heard that he can lift 500 pounds. So we're going to find out tonight. His name is Grady Bennett. Let's welcome him to the stage.
Thank you. Well, I, like Teigan, am going to use my notes to make sure I say what needs to be said. But I want to start by once again thanking Teigan simply because she displayed courage and vulnerability. Courage and vulnerability, two of the most important things that we need to fight through and move through the struggles in life. The courage to be vulnerable. And Teigan, once again, just displayed that for us. Thank you so much. So, you guys, I'm sandwiched tonight between two young, very hip, very talented speakers. So you might be very understandably asking yourself, why am I speaking tonight? Now, it's clearly not because I'm some sort of special motivational speaker, and it's definitely, I'm not an expert on these topics. And my story isn't any greater overcoming my struggle than anyone else's. But simply put, in my 31st year of teaching and coaching, I am more passionate about my purpose than ever before. And I believe that passion grows stronger every single day. See, I believe that purpose is the reason for our journey through life. And passion is the fire that lights the way. So as we consider our world today, Teigan touched on a few of the statistics, but our culture, the negativity that surrounds us, Man, it's been a tough last 3 years. We're all very, very aware of that, I know. So my passion for the purpose of fighting for lives and helping young people, helping all of you that are here tonight, helping all of us fight for life in a world that seems to devalue life more and more every single day, to fight for the beautiful, wonderful, inherent worth and value of each and every single life.
Yeah.
And to fight for the hope that it is on the other side of the brokenness. Just like Teigan's story, so beautiful. My passion, you guys, for the purpose of letting young people know, letting all of us here tonight know the truth that life is precious, that life is valuable, that you are valuable, that you matter. You were born on purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose. You are enough because you are a miracle. So, thank you. You guys are wow. So, I have a reputation. I'm known as the Every Day's a Great Day guy. When you come into my classroom, you'll see it on my board every day. I talk about it all the time. My entire career, I've been passionately teaching all my students and athletes the power of perspective that Teigan talked about. I believe perspective is truly, truly powerful. It is life-shaping and life-directing. And so in our ever-increasing negativity that's in our world, there's two perspectives that I believe young people especially really battle. And so I just try to every day challenge those perspectives. The perspective we have about life in general, and the perspective we have about ourselves. And obviously those two things can be very, very negative. So I've just taught the perspective that every day's a gift. Every day's a blessing. Something to be thankful for and cherish. We only get one of every single day. So live it to the full. Get the most out of it. Be the best that you can be. Live a life of I get to instead of I have to. Live a life of thriving instead of just surviving. Well, this perspective that every day's a great day has been met with some legitimate criticism over the years by students who knew my life pretty well. You see, for 50 years, I would say I was the most blessed man on the earth. I had a great family, great upbringing, great high school career, received a full-ride scholarship to play college football, great college career, right back to my hometown to teaching coach, great professional career, great family, raised 3 beautiful daughters. Now, in the midst of living this blessed life, life is life, right? And so, I mean, still, we have to get up and we have to, grind through and go to work and go to school and deal with life's ups and downs. And I don't lift anymore, but I can still do this probably a few times. And there's days when, man, it's a great day and that seems light and I can do a bunch of reps. And then there's days where I'm like, man, did somebody put a 5 on there, or a 10, or 25, or a 35? This is a hard day. I think we can all relate to that, right? But again, legit criticism. Because these students would say things to me like, Mr. B, that's a good philosophy and all. Like, we get what you're saying and what you're trying to teach us, but you don't know what I've been through. You don't know what I've gone through, what I'm dealing with. How can you understand? Honestly, you guys, I didn't understand how people could get to such a hard, dark place where they could lose all hope. I didn't understand how people could get to a place where they could truly consider that life may not be worth living. I didn't know then just how I couldn't relate. Well, then October 19th, 2018 happened. I took my wife of 29 years out for her birthday. We were high school sweethearts, so we've been together for 35 years. And at that birthday dinner, she told me that she was having an affair with a very close family friend, and she was leaving me. We got home, she packed one bag, and was gone forever. The deep, emotional, psychological pain that comes from trauma in life is real. Psychological studies say that the most painful psychological, emotional thing a person can deal with is the death of a child. High on that list of deep psychological, emotional pain is finding out about a cheating spouse, infidelity, adultery. So all of a sudden, there I was, alone in my house, experiencing emotions, thoughts, and feelings I never dreamed possible for me. It was the unimaginable pain of a broken heart, rejection, abandonment, betrayal. On top of that, the intense feelings of shame and guilt and failure as a husband, as a father, and as a man. But what crushed me most was that now, in front of the community that I'd spent my whole life building, I was a complete fraud. Now remember, I was the every day is a great day guy. I was the coach who built an entire football program on character and teaching young boys to become good men and be good husbands and good fathers. And I felt now like everything I'd ever said or taught was a lie. I didn't know how I could ever face my students and my players again. I was at a point where I didn't know if I could go on. I didn't know if I wanted to go on. I finally understood how people could get to a dark place, a place of despair where it felt like there were no options, no choices, definitely no hope. So I spent the next few months essentially surviving. It was only 3 short months later that the new semester started. So first day of class, I always give my perspective again on every day's a great day, probably pretty unconvincingly this time. When Mr. Hill walked in to my room and told me that earlier that morning, Andrew Harris had decided to end his life. Now, Andrew Harris was one of the greatest football players in Wolfpack football history. He led us to the state championship in 2014. He was currently a junior playing football for the University of Montana. He seemed to have everything going for him. But he became my first former player lost to suicide. So why am I talking today? Because everyone struggles. Everyone struggles. At least in some way, to some level, to some degree in this journey through life. But guess what? It's okay to not be okay. Let me say that again. It's okay to not be okay. Because every day is a great day, right? Until it's not. Life is great, right? Until it's not. I'm okay, right? Until I'm not. So here's the question. What do you do when life happens to you? Where do you go when hard times come? Who do you turn to when the struggle is real? What is next when you feel like you're completely out of choices and have no more options? How do you turn utter despair? Despair being that feeling of knowing that things are not right, they're not the way they should be, but there's nothing you can do to change them. How do you turn that feeling of despair into hope? How can you really believe that there is hope on the other side of brokenness? That's what tonight is about, everyone. Thank you for coming. It's about finding answers to these difficult questions. It's about creating resilience, perseverance, strength, and courage to fight for your life, to fight for your friends' lives, for your loved ones' lives, to fight through the struggle. Tonight's about developing strategies to handle when hard times come, because they will come. Most of all, as Colton started us off, it's about giving us hope, that there truly is hope beyond brokenness. Well, thankfully, I made the decision, just as Teigan did, to fight hard through the struggle. I started a journal called The Fight of My Life. I wrote it in every day. I remember the first day it took me a week, but I actually did fight in my life, and I need you. Which leads me to 2 strategies that I have for you that help me through. Help me fight, and I believe they've helped many people, and I hope they help you too. The first, speak the truth to yourself. Speak the truth to yourself. Teigan introduced a very important principle so powerfully and explained that she learned through her experience that the thoughts in my head will rule my world. The thoughts in your head will rule your world. What occurs right in here is what will ultimately become the actions that you live out. It all starts with the thoughts in your head, you guys, and so often those thoughts are negative, they're scary, and even dangerous. Our world is so negative, right? And just continues to grow in its negativity. We're surrounded by it. And then we add to it. Because we as humans tend to be negative. Those 2 things I talked about. All sorts of negative thoughts about life and just getting through each day. And then we're our own worst critics, as Teigan explained. Negative about ourselves. So here's the action point. Don't listen to yourself, but instead talk to yourself. Speak to yourself. Don't listen to the negative thoughts, but instead speak to yourself. And you guys, I'm being literal. I mean truly speak out loud, audibly, and quite possibly very loudly. I'm not talking about just positive thinking, because psychologists have proven negative thoughts are more powerful than positive thoughts. So it's not just about thinking positively, but speaking is 10 times more powerful than thinking. So the key is, again, speaking. And what do you speak? It's the truth. Not what social media says, not what the culture says, not what a mean person or a bully says, not even what your thoughts are telling you, but speak the truth. Now, we're going to practice this together. And you guys have been a great audience, so it's going to go really well. Because I know it's going to be awkward, it's going to be a little weird, but it's so important and it's so key. Speaking the truth will do 2 things. Number 1, it will begin to set you free from the lies and the negativity. And number 2, it will become the power for the courage that you need to fight the battle. So speak these truths. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home tonight. I want you to get a piece of paper out. And I want you to write down as many of the I am affirmations as you need to. There's hundreds of them. But I want you to write them down. I want you to put them someplace where you'll see them first thing every morning and last thing at night. And I want you to begin each day and end each day with 1. Start with 1, maybe 2. However many that you need to say. But speak the truth into the mirror to yourself. I've got some wonderful students to help me tonight. Please repeat after me. My life is precious.
My life is precious.
Good job. I was ahead of myself. I was so excited. Number 2, I am valuable.
I am valuable.
I matter.
I matter.
Here comes a long one. I was born on purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose.
I was born on purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose.
I have gifts and talents that the world needs.
I have gifts and talents that the world needs.
This little guy right down here is just crushing it. I am deeply loved.
I am deeply loved.
I am enough.
I am enough.
Because I am a miracle.
Because I am a miracle.
I can't wait for you guys to experience, as I did, the freedom that comes from speaking the truth into and over your life and having others do so as well, which brings me to my final point. Victory comes through vulnerability. That's your cue, Jake. You guys, it takes courage to be vulnerable and admit that you're struggling. It's hard to admit that you need help, that you're not okay? Why do you think all these statistics are much greater in males? Because it's harder for guys to admit and to ask for help. We're told that we're supposed to man up instead of admitting, man down, help me. But the victory is found in the vulnerability. Now, I know when I say that you are deeply loved and cared about, I know there's a lot of people that don't believe me. I've had students tell me, Mr. B, I can't think of one person who I think truly loves me and cares about me. But here's the truth. If you will only have the courage to be vulnerable and ask for help, people will line up to love you and care for you. Please know that you always have choices and options. You always have the choice to have the courage to be vulnerable. And that's what tonight is all about. There are people here, organizations, resources, groups that want to love you and care for you, carry your burden, lift your burden, walk through the struggle with you. People that want to give you hope that there truly is beauty beyond the brokenness. Now, you guys, there's no way I can lift this. Like I said, I don't lift anymore. 2 plates would bury me. But this is where I was at. I have no options. I can't do that. I have no hope to do that. So I had to get to the place where I said, help, I'm not doing good at all. And I started to be vulnerable and cry out. And as I promised you, people lined up to love me and care for me. I could talk for 1 hour of stories. It's beautiful. My daughters, unbelievable, were there for me. My coaches, like brothers, walked step by step. My players, who I was so afraid to face, lined up and loved me and believed in me and cared for me. And that has continued as some of these guys have been through some really tough struggles in their own lives. These last 3 years have been beautiful as we have fought and battled life together. The GHS counselors were wonderful. This entire staff, my church community, this entire community was there to lift my burden and help me carry my burden. Victory comes through vulnerability. There is beauty and hope on the other side of brokenness. Mine is sitting right over here tonight. You guys like it? Yes. I plead with you tonight to have the courage for yourself, for a friend, for a loved one, to be vulnerable. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Grady Bennett. We actually aren't going to. We have one more speaker who is no stranger to nights just like these. Back in 2017, he created the Character Conference and has since kind of shifted the focus to what we're talking about tonight, fighting for our lives. He has, for 13 years now, been a PE teacher here in Kalispell. He is fantastic, and some say he is the most tan man in all of Western Montana. You know who we're talking about. Let's hear it for Noah Couser as
Awesome. Thank you for that awesome and awkward introduction. It's so awesome to be here tonight, and I was just sitting there, like, I just had a realization a few moments ago because I was so captivated by our speakers. I was like, oh shoot, I actually have to speak. Like, I gotta get up after this and talk. So I'm humbled to be here tonight, and I'm so honored to follow these two awesome human beings that I've learned so much from, and I'm so thankful that they were crazy enough to put on this event for you guys tonight. So give those guys one more big round of applause. Please. Well, a lot has changed since I took this stage in 2019. We've gone through a lot as a country. We've gone through a lot as a community. And like Grady, I don't claim to be an expert on this topic. I'm not a psychologist, not a psychiatrist. I'm a gym teacher who loves this community, who loves these students, and who's been to way too many funerals for people who have left this world too soon. And so I'm here tonight, hopefully to encourage you a little bit, to put a closing piece on this talk tonight, and to encourage you in the fight of your life as you leave here. Now, I've spent a lot of time talking to people in this last year, a lot of time listening. And everybody wants a 10-step process for ending suicide. Everybody wants answers, myself included, but there's no quick fix. There are no easy answers. But I do know that if every single one of us in here commits to fighting for mental health in our homes, in our community, in our schools, and mostly in ourselves, we will see change in this valley. We will see change in our state. When I named this event, I was careful to choose the word fight, because fighting is an active process. It's a battle, and it's rarely pretty. I have 3 sons. Caleb is 5. Ruben is 2, and if you notice my beautiful wife, Megan, up here, she has that 3rd trimester glow about her, which is like, get this baby out of me. But we are having another boy here in just another month. Yeah, that's exciting. But I had a moment the other day with my 2-year-old son, Ruben, and my wife bought the boys these little shovels from Target so they could help Dad shovel the driveway. And I'm going to be honest with you, they're not much help. They're adorable, but they're not much help. But I'm out there shoveling with my son Ruben, and we're shoveling the driveway, and he leaves the driveway and walks over to the yard and starts shoveling the snow off of the grass. And frankly, I was relieved because he was out of the way and I could actually get some work done. But I walked over, I was like, Ruby, what are you doing, bud? He's like, Dad, well, I'm going to shovel the snow off the grass, and then we can take off our boots and all of our warmies, and we can run around barefoot and it'll be summer again. And if you lived in northwest Montana for longer than a month, you've had a moment just like that, where you wish you could just shovel away winter, where you would just do anything to see the sun, where you and I often want to shovel our way out of seasons that suck, seasons that are dark, seasons of struggle. What if we could do this in our life? We could hit a magic teleport button to an easier, sunnier season of life. We would miss the lesson behind the letdown. See, I've come to know in my life that there is always a lesson behind the letdown, because seasons of struggle have a way of teaching us better than any professor, have a way of teaching us deeper than any YouTube tutorial can. Challenges change us. They shape us. They mold us. When and not if we get into the struggle of life, the circumstances are unfavorable, we often hope, we often pray for the season to change rather than ourselves. What would it look like if you and I left here in seasons of struggle, and instead of desiring for the circumstances to change, we desire for ourselves to change? It's a different way to look at it. No challenge, no change has become a mantra in my house and in my classroom. There's literally students here tonight that just cringe a little bit because those words left my lips, okay? Because they heard them hundreds of times in my class, usually in the middle of like some atrocious workout that I designed specifically for them. And I'm screaming, no challenge, no change. And they're like, just let me be. Who needs abs anyway? But I know what they don't. I know that challenges and struggles are some of our best teachers in life and some of our greatest change agents. See, my job as a physical education teacher is to provide daily challenges for my students. Because without challenge and without adversity, it can be very difficult for us to change. And if you and I are faithful to bring a work ethic, to bring an attitude, to bring even, dare I say, an expectancy in the middle of a struggle, we will change for the better. We will, I promise you. You bring an attitude, a work ethic, and expectancy, and you will see positive change. Much like these guys talked about. We can control our mindset, attitude, and work ethic, and it makes all the difference. Now, I'm a little bit borderline sadistic in this area of my life. I like to create ridiculously difficult situations for myself, for my students, even for my sons. Last summer, I had the crazy goal to try to climb all 6 of Glacier National Park's 10,000-foot peaks in 6 days. Yeah. I don't know if you're clapping because you feel bad for me because it's insane. It's insane. 165 miles, 65,000 vertical feet, which is like 4 times up and down Mount Everest in 6 days without getting in a car and carrying all the gear on our back in the most populated grizzly country in the lower 48 states. It was a challenge. You're going to say it was a challenge. It was a challenge, but I want to change because I know, but for myself, that if I don't have a challenge, I'm not changing. And so I created this challenge. And I gave it my best shot. After 4 days and traversing through some of the most ridiculously difficult, toughest, most grueling, but most incredible days of my life. Yep. That's called the struggle bus right there. That's like 3 hours of sleep and you're like, oh shoot, I gotta go do this again. I ended up right here on our 5th mountain. With my best friend Greg, and sleep deprived, a little neurotic, a little tired, and decided to turn back. I had met the challenge. The challenge had met me. I had achieved the goal. And some of you are sitting here tonight and you're like, awesome, Noah, so your life is so amazing and perfect that you create ways for you to suffer. But I'm actually struggling with something tonight, Mr. Gym Teacher, and you don't know what I'm going through. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what is causing you pain. I don't know what you're struggling with, but I must struggle. And in sharing life with other people who have overcome insurmountable odds and difficulties in my own life, I realize that it's more important, it matters less about what you struggle with, than it matters about how you struggle with it. See, I worked with over 4,000 teenagers in the last 13 years. And I've seen this demonstrated time and time and time again. You can have 2 students from very similar backgrounds, insanely difficult home situations, just horrific tales of abuse, of neglect, substance abuse. One student turns to blaming their parents. One student takes on a victim mentality, and one student tells the tainted tale of their childhood as a headline over their life, and often turns to the same substances or the same abuses that riddled their childhood. Another student, same situation, develops deep in their soul a determination for a different life. They utilize the disappointment, they utilize everything that has happened as fuel for the fire for them to fight and scratch and claw for a different life. Some of my favorite students that I've ever worked with have come from the most difficult situations. You got 2 people, similar situations, very different attitudes. Very different outcomes. While I'm talking about students tonight, how many students do I have here tonight? Can you just wave a teenage hand in the air? Can you give a round of applause for our students? To be a student in 2022. Now, students, I'm so happy that you're here. I see a lot of familiar faces. Actually, I don't see anybody. I see these bright lights in my eyes, but I think I saw some familiar faces earlier. But I had a conversation with a former student this last fall after we had lost yet another one of our teenagers. There's a friend of theirs and a former student of mine, and we were chatting. They were like, Couser, I'm going to be honest, I'm so ready to graduate. Get me out of here. Like, I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to move past this. I'm ready to get some separation from this season in my life. And I feel that. I hear that. I understand that and wanting to get some distance from a difficult season. But those of you students that are in here, I just want to encourage you. That's opportunity calling for you students. Right? I was trying to think of a joke. I couldn't figure it out. I just want to encourage you that we need you, students, in our schools. Now, I know that you want, I know you want to graduate, I know you want to grow up so bad, but you can make such a difference in your school. You can make more of a difference than the old people in your school that are trying to affect change. And I don't know, maybe I'm ridiculously idealistic, but I just have this vision of students who go to school on purpose. Students that walk the halls with that mentality, that one video that we had. Can you imagine if that was the heartbeat in our hallways? Students fighting together like a socially awkward battalion of teenagers fighting in lockstep through the most insecure and inconsistent years of your life. Students, we need you. We need your creativity. We need your passion. We need your innocence. We need your ideas. Don't you dare discredit yourself because of your age. You can be a change agent. You can be a perspective shifter. You can be a hope dealer. You can be an empathy activist. I challenge you to go to school differently tomorrow. Go to school on purpose. Go to school with your eyes up. See faces, not phones. Look at people. You can make change. You can make change. Please encourage our students here tonight. Attitude matters. I've seen parents with incredibly obstinate, ridiculously difficult teenagers. I mean, just the most difficult of the most difficult. If you came with one of those here tonight, parents, just look straight. I want to see the elbows here tonight, okay? One parent writes them off, calls it hormones, calls it puberty, blames it on social media and the dang TikTok, throws up their hands, and says kids will be kids, and allows the teenager to drive an even more of a rift in the relationship. The other parent dives in, gets creative, finds ways to connect, finds ways to establish and build the relationship. Works hard, even when it seems like nothing is working with this stubborn teenager. Two very similar situations, two very different attitudes, two very different outcomes. While I'm talking about parents, how many parents do I have here in the house tonight? Can you give the parents a round of applause? Please. Now, parents, especially if you're a parent of a teenager, I just want to encourage you just for a quick second, because I feel like you need it. I work with your son or daughter, or at least a past version of what they used to be like. Teenagers are a lot like toddlers. I know because I have a toddler and I've worked with thousands of teenagers. They're nearly identical twins. Okay, they're both a little bit smelly, okay? And they love doing one thing. You know what it is? Pushing boundaries. They love pushing boundaries. Okay? My 2-year-old is so incredibly hard-headed. He is ridiculously passionate and insanely stubborn. I think he gets it from his mom. He will look me straight in the eye and disobey me time after time again. Spanking after spanking, it doesn't matter. He will disobey me, but it is a test. He is testing the limits of my love. He is just waiting to see if I care enough to not quit. Teenagers do the exact same thing, but just in more teenagery ways. Parents, you already know this, but they will pretend that you are the stupidest, lamest, most out-of-touch human being on the planet. They will listen to every other adult in their life except for you. I can't tell you how many times I had parents be like, hey, could you tell my son to make his bed? Because he won't make his bed. He won't listen to me. He'll listen to Mr. Couser all day long. All I hear is about Mr. Couser, but he won't listen to me. Right? They will do the exact opposite thing that you ask. They will roll their eyes at every attempt you make to get to know them more. But parents, don't be deceived. This is a test. Just like when they were 2. They are testing the limits of your love. And I just want to encourage you, parents. Keep fighting for them. Keep checking in on them. Keep reading their texts. Keep fighting for family dinner. Keep showing up. Keep showing up for every eye roll, every sarcastic comment. Keep showing up, parents, because you know what? That's what they need. That's what they need. Somebody fighting for them. And deep down, that's what they want. Even though they pretend that they don't. Some of you are sitting here, this is a sidebar here, but some of you are sitting here without parents. Maybe you got dropped off, or maybe they're not around. Maybe they left. And maybe you're like, that's great that there's a bunch of parents here, but where's my dad? Where's my mom? And I just want to encourage you, as you might sit here and feel like you are alone, look around. You're not alone. You are not alone. You have adults in your life that love you, that care for you. You have adults in your schools that will fight for you. Surround yourself with people that are willing and able and resourced to the nines to help you through these difficult years, teenager. You are not alone. And it's not fair. It's not fair. It breaks my heart getting to know so many students that come from such difficult situations, but you're not alone. Mindset, work ethic, and attitude are game changers in how we struggle. But the knockout punch, the knockout punch for any trouble, trial, or test is purpose. It's purpose. I'm going to talk about this a little bit, and I want to expand just a smidge. In order to, when we're in the middle of a fight, we don't need to understand the purpose. Oftentimes we want to know the why. We want to know, why am I going through this? Why am I struggling with this? Why did this happen? Why did they leave? Why did they say this? Why do people treat me this way? We don't need to understand the why. And frankly, if that's our goal, we'll be left with more questions than answers. But if we have the audacity, everybody say audacity. Audacity! If we have the audacity to believe that the pain and the struggle we are experiencing is for a purpose. We have the faith to believe that what we're going through can be for a purpose. We can endure almost anything. One of the greatest books I read this year was called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Yeah, it's a good book. Took me 36 years to read it, but it was good. It was good. Okay, it was an audiobook. I feel like you have to say that. I'm a gym teacher, I struggle with reading, but I like when people read to me, okay? So I listened to this audiobook, just being vulnerable. Like Grady said, I listened to this audiobook, Man's Search for Meaning, and if you haven't read it, it will destroy you in the best way possible. But Victor, like many Jews in the Holocaust, had everything taken from him. He lost his father, his mother, his brother, and his wife to the gas chambers. He lost his freedom, his dignity, his humanity during the 3 years that he was in concentration camps. And one of the quotes from this book is seared into my brain. He says that everything, everybody say everything. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing. The last of his human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way. He talks at length about the power of purpose. He describes in his book about how he had these purpose missions every day where he would go and look to help people. While experiencing unspeakable torture, he would go out of his way to find purpose and find meaning in helping other people. Kelly McGonigal, who's a TED speaker and an author, said that helping others increases the chemistry of hope and courage. despair. I believe that if you have a pulse, you have a purpose. I have the audacity to believe that our pain, our struggle, our worst moments in life are our greatest opportunities for change in ourselves and in other people if you are willing to share your struggle. As a teacher, as an educator, as a speaker, I had the worst moments in my life become the greatest opportunities to impact and affect change and perspective in people. But I must choose to see that purpose. I must choose to believe in it, even when it doesn't make sense. I believe that your pain may not change the entire world, but it will change the world for someone. Now, there are really only two people in this room tonight. Some of you are sitting here in a place of relative stability. We're talking about the fight for your life, and if you were to describe it right now, it's right in my eyes. Right? And if that's you here today, there's nothing wrong with that. I want to encourage you with two quick things. First, find a way to be an advocate for others who are in the middle of the struggle. It doesn't take much to pick somebody up off the mat in the middle of their knockout fight. Right? A little bit of kindness goes a long way, but you will never accidentally help somebody out of a season of struggle. It takes intentionality. It takes acting in purpose. Right? You have to be seekers of struggle. Seeking people who are in struggle. This is one of my favorite things to do at Couser Middle School. I walk the halls. Walking the halls of the middle school is like walking through a stampede of hormonal wildebeests, right? It is like the freaking jungle. Like it is. But I love it. I walk the halls and I don't check emails. I don't look at my phone. I look at faces. I search for those who are struggling. Not all the time. I'm not a perfect person. Sometimes I hold up in my office and I watch YouTube videos, right? But I roam the halls and I look into people's eyes and that kid needs a high five. But this person, they see the joke. These guys, man, a hug can go a long way. You gotta be seekers. Seek people who are struggling. It doesn't take much, but it does take intentionality. Love people. See, I wonder often if we really love people or we just love the idea of loving people. Got real quiet. See, the idea of loving people is really neat. It's really clean. Right? It looks great on paper. But actually loving people, broken, hope-deprived, hurting people, it's messy. It's inconvenient. It's often the last thing that you want to do. But if we want to see change, real change. And I believe that you're here tonight because you want to see change. Right? Who comes to a talk on suicide on a Wednesday night unless you're here for change in this valley? Hello, somebody, wake up. Change in our state, change in our schools, change in ourselves. You can clap all you want, but unless we are willing to put on that kind of love, committed, persistent love. Love that can endure. Love that can withstand rejection. Love that can tolerate offense. Love that can handle the stubbornness of a teenager. Love that leaves you worn out, tore up, utterly spent, absolutely worked. Love that takes sacrifice. Love that takes time. Love that is willing to pursue. You put on that kind of love, we will see change. I promise you, we will see change. Second thing, I want to encourage you to train. Train for the fight that you aren't yet in. See, training is proactive. The number one habit of highly effective people, another great book that I listen to, Stephen Covey. Hello, if somebody has ever heard of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a great book. It's really long though, so listen to it. This is going to speed it up 2 times in 10 years. Anyway. Number 1 habit of highly effective people is proactivity. Training is proactive. Right? When I was training for that crazy glacier expedition, I had a coach, I had a schedule, I had a plan, I had benchmarks I had to hit every single week, I had accountability partners I had to run with and that I had to answer to if I didn't wake up for the 6 a.m. text. And it was intentional. We need that kind of intentionality with our own mental health, especially when things are great. We need to hit the gym of gratitude, right? We need to hit some reps of self-care while your head is above water. So when that punch hits you in the mouth, you will still be surprised. You will still be shocked. But you won't be without some strength for the fight. So train for the trial. Train for the fight that you aren't yet in. Maybe that's not you. Maybe you're in the middle of a fight, and maybe you barely made it here tonight. Maybe the season of struggle I'm describing you. Maybe you're wishing you could shovel your way out of the situation that you're in. Maybe you've been punched in the mouth by relationships, by quarantines, by isolation, by business failure, by divorce, by depression, by social anxiety, or mean girls at school, or the perfect storm of all of the above. I have a couple of things I want to leave you with as well, and frankly, you're the main reason why I'm here tonight. There will be seasons, there will be times where you will forget all of the neat and clean ideas and things that you have put into place. And you've got to fix your focus on a couple ideas. First, focus on what you can control. And we talked about perspective, we talked about your response, and I'm not going to belabor that anymore. But what if we make it even more granular? What if we make it even simpler? Food, sleep, water. And what if you actually broke it down and you committed to eating decent food and you actually drank your body weight in ounces of water per day and you actually fought for your sleep and you didn't have this as your alarm clock next to your pillow at night so you got every notification and every buzz every time somebody commented on your Instagram post or whatever else. But it's my alarm clock. Couser, no, buy an alarm clock, okay? I'll buy you one. They're like $6, okay? This should not be by your bedside at night. Started limiting your time on social media. Yes, I'm going there. I saw an eye roll from a teenager who was secretly looking at their phone. Number 1 killer of contentment, comparison on social media. How have we not started to wake up to this yet? We put sunscreen on our precious Montana skin, except for me, apparently. I don't know, I guess. We have passwords on our accounts with 17 letters and numbers, one uppercase, one lowercase, an Arabic symbol, right? We protect these things. We have doorbells with video cameras that tell us if it's a FedEx guy or some intruder, but we let an algorithm decide what's best to put in front of our fragile eyes for hours upon hours a day. Don't be as stupid as you used to be, right? Hello. What are we doing? What do we think? We have the most brilliant minds on the planet. Not solving disease, but trying to captivate your attention. Trying to turn us into zombies. Who knew that comparing you behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel actually isn't good for your mental health? I'm reading a book, actually reading, legit reading, hardcover paper. Yes, I'm growing, okay? No challenge, no change, right? I'm reading a book called Glow Kids. Glow Kids. It's written by a psychologist. It's terrifying. I encourage every human to read it, especially if you're a parent. Sorry in advance if your parent reads this and you're a tech-addicted teenager. But it's written by a psychologist who specializes in screen addiction. And he explains how the overstimulation of our smartphones, games, apps, and social media is not only crushing our attention span, but it's killing the pleasure centers in our brain. So when actually something happens awesome in your life, the dopamine dance party in your brain is so much less because of the mind-numbing and the overly engaging content that we are swiping and scrolling for hours a day. Hours a day. The average teenager spends 9 hours a day on a screened device. We are overstimulating ourselves with these devices. More time on the phone equals higher rates of depression. We are living in an age of digital escapism. The author calls it digital morphine. They literally tested this on severe burn patients who were receiving morphine. They pulled their morphine drip and they gave them a phone with engaging apps and games and social media, and they noticed little to no change in their pain. We are numbing ourselves to the bad, but also to the good. We are the most socially connected generation on the planet, but we have the highest level of depression and anxiety than any other people group to walk this earth. Parents, it starts with you. Model healthy screen behavior for your kids. Set up restrictions for those stubborn teenagers and for those little kids. I mean, we're in the middle school and every 6th grader's got an iPhone 13. I'm like, what the? Who bought you this? Students, some of you need to parent yourselves. Some of your parents are worse than you. Turn off notifications, delete social apps, take scheduled screen breaks, detoxify your brain. Try it for a couple weeks. Give it a try. If you don't feel better, you can come back and I'll give you your money back from the event. How about that? Second thing I want you to know is that struggle is a stage. It's not a destination. Struggle is a scene. It's not the whole story. Some of us take on a pathology of pain. We make the struggle our address and we set up our home in a place that should have been a temporary residence. We often gravitate as humans to what's familiar, to what's comfortable, and because what some of you have been to and gone through, pain is the safest place that you know. We are creatures of comfort, even if that place and residence is toxic and self-sabotaging. It has become your normal. And when somebody like me comes along and tries to encourage you and tries to affirm your value and gets all of these great statements and tells you to say it over yourself, you fight them rather than fighting for freedom, rather than fighting for the truth. The truth that will set you free. But when you have been a slave to negativity and a slave to darkness, when you become a slave to insecurity and negative self-talk, happiness and joy are scarier than choosing to be miserable. I challenge you today to choose joy even if it feels fake. I challenge you to fight out of the construct that you have set up for yourself, the limitations about yourself that you have actually begun to believe. Too many of us make a process permanent. We take a suffering stage and we make it a destination. The truth, like Grady said, is that you're incredibly valuable. And some of you sit here and you're saying, well, I don't feel very valuable because of what's happened to me or what's been done to me. But value is not a feeling. Value is not a feeling. Try it. Go to Taco Bell tomorrow. Suits, football team, order everything on the menu. Hand a $1 bill. Oh, sorry, your total is $95.93. Oh, I feel like it's 100. That doesn't work. It's not a feeling, it's a fact. Facts, as the teenagers say. Facts. You are valuable. Facts. You have a future. Facts. You have people that only you will impact. Facts. You are desperately loved. You are a member of this community. You are a change agent. You are a fighter that we need. We need you. Your life has value. Your life has worth. The truth. This community needs you. People in your life need you. The truth is that suicide does not end pain. It magnifies it. It explodes it. It transfers it to everybody in your life. You need to know that you're not alone. Pain is not prejudice. It doesn't matter your address, your age, the color of your skin, your orientation, or your station in life. We have all been through difficult days. We are united in struggle. Can you stand up, please? This is the last point here. We are united in struggle. This is cheesy as crap, but I'm going to do it anyway. I want you to grab an arm next to you, grab a shoulder, grab a hand. I know we're not supposed to touch people and social distance, whatever. We need the opposite of that. We need connection. We need connectivity. We need people willing to reach out and squeeze a neighbor and grab a hug and grab a shoulder of somebody that you don't know. We need connection. And you need to know. You need to know that you're not alone. Some struggles are just more visible. If you had come in here tonight with an arterial bleed in the neck, we would have had an ambulance here for you in about a minute. But the truth is that some of you are struggling. And when you struggle internally, emotionally, mentally, partnership is built into the healing process. Victory requires vulnerability. I love that. We have the opportunity, if we're bold enough, if we're brave enough, to reach out for resources and ask for help in the middle of that struggle, because we are all united in struggle. And our relationships can be made stronger in the struggle if we're bold enough to ask for help. There are people here who love you, people here who need you. We have resources in this valley, so many, that you got on this little tiny sheet, size 6 font. You know you're on a budget when you go to size 6 font, right? We got resources, we got amazing organizations in this valley, many of which I know of and have just seen people work tirelessly this last year to fight for you and to fight for your kids, and they're still there and they're still willing to be there for you. So reach out for those resources. Leave here different. Take this home and make it real for yourself, for your kids, for your community, and for your future. Because you, my friend, are worth fighting for. We love you guys. Thanks for coming.
You guys are already standing, so let's give a big round of applause to Noah Couser. What a great message.